Superman 37, legacy number 880. Joshua Williamson writing with Dan Mora on the art. And once again, it is indeed prime time. Oh, jeez.
I hate this jabroni.
Here's the thing, right? I don't particularly like him either, but the thing that was getting me were, like, if you have Superboy Prime, you make a little couple of nudge, nudge, wink, wink meta jokes. That's fine. And it's one thing when he says a meta joke straight to the audience, right? When he turns to the camera effectively and says, hey, reader, aren't you just sick of events and tie-ins? It's like, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. Like it or don't, I'm not necessarily in love with it, but I can kind of accept that for what it is. But see when he starts talking to the Kents, and he's like, hey, at least you're alive in this continuity, and do you know that Mark Waid would actually rather you two be dead? I know it's surprising. That just, it's like, I don't want him talking to the characters this in-depthly about, like, the meta, like, character discussion, you know? I don't want that.
Look, I understand where you're coming from, but the editor's note from Mark Waid going, yeah, no, that's true. That popped me as a comic reader. Does it make sense in the scheme that he should be telling the Kents any of this? No.
Right? My problem is purely from the side of the characters. I don't want the Kents hearing any of this. That's what I don't want.
No, because they have no idea what a Mark Waid is. Right? Like, that name means nothing to Martha and Jonathan Kent. You know? So, like, he doesn't have to say any of this. And this is just Williamson being a little bit too cute. And it makes me upset with me that it worked on me for that. And again, without that Mark Waid editor's box, I really rage about this. But that's true. And then it makes me rethink Birthright and all that type of stuff. I'm like, no, Waid was good writing the Kents. What are we talking about?
Yeah, you don't have to. This has nothing to do with like rethinking. Like, Mark Waid's allowed to think the Kents should be dead by now. That's okay. That doesn't change Birthright. It doesn't change anything else he's written that's been good. It's fine. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah. That's not the problem here. The problem is the Superboy Prime, for this amount of time, and by this amount of time I mean, like, I had enough of him when he was, like, guesting in a couple of tie-ins during KO. Mm-hmm. That was enough Superboy Prime. This is far too much Superboy Prime. Him being the lead in the Superman book is far too much Superboy Prime. And I'm just...
Yes.
I don't want to be reading the Superboy Prime book. It's not why I'm here. Anyway, it's just, there's too much meta stuff. It's too much, like, nudge, nudge, wink at the camera. Isn't it wild that we're making these references? Look, when you've not seen him in a long time and he jumps in and makes a meta reference, that's fine. Once he's done it for, like, a couple of issues, it's like, okay, we're just doing Deadpool humor now, basically, at this point.
Yeah.
That's effectively what it becomes. And because it's not like it's terrible when it's like, oh, he's trying to be good at his job at the comic book store, and he's like, you know, he's oblivious to the fact that the girl's flirting with him and asking him to hang out, and he just kind of says, why would I go to your place to read comics? I have all the comics I want to hear. That's okay. That could be like a fun character, but it doesn't have to be meta. I know there's a meta bit here when the employer's saying, hey, you get too passionate about the comics sometimes. The weird thing is, though, and this is, again, like, one of these fuzzy lines between the meta and, like, the in-universe stuff, is that it feels like he's got these strong opinions because he's talking about DC Comics. But while I believe that in the universe there probably is comics about Superman and Batman and stuff, they won't know all the personal stuff, right? They'll be very different to what we read as comics. So it just feels weird that he's given these strong opinions when presumably the comics in universe don't actually match any of the comics that he's ever read in the quote-unquote real world. So I don't know, it all falls apart if you think about it for more than 10 seconds.
Well, also all the logos in the store being old comic book logos, also that's a bit of, you know, meta type stuff where I'm just like, why is there a Batman comic with that logo?
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is, Matt? Do you know what this is? Do you know what Superboy Prime is? It's just Ready Player One for comic book writers. They just want to make references. They just want to have the old logos. They want to have a character bring up continuity shit. And it's just for cheap pops. And don't get me wrong, I love some of the traditions. I love the tradition of naming every street in Gotham after people who have wrote or drawn Batman comics, and same in Metropolis for Superman, and so on and so on. Great little gimmick. Love that. right? This is just cheap pop bullshit.
But those are Easter eggs. And if you know, you know. But if you don't know, being on the corner of Siegel and Schuster in Metropolis is just like a fun little thing. It doesn't get in the way. Whereas this kind of does. And God, I hate Prime so much. That said, this lady talking to me, if I'm him, I automatically fold. I don't care how much into comic books I am. She is throwing herself at him. And he's just like, no, it's like, brother, you need friends. And I will say that is kind of, I feel like the theme that worked for me the most here is that the reason Prime is like this so much is he doesn't have anybody else to relate to, right? He is a solitary being. He's, his world's gone, I think, right? He doesn't have a Robin to be friends with. He doesn't have, a Pete to be friends with. And when we get to it, when he gets talking with Damian and whatever, I feel like Prime needs friends. And I don't know if that's the same crux that Williamson's going for, but that's what I picked up on. Like, if this guy has a couple of dudes to bust his balls and be like, hey man, you don't need to be talking about comics all the time. You don't need to be yelling at the customers, and we kind of get that side of things. It would make it redeemable to me. But here he's the type of fan I do not like running into at a comic shop or a Comic-Con.
Yeah, and it feels weird that a comic book shop inside the DC universe would be selling a statue of Darkseid. Like,
yeah, you mean the guy that tried to cause a global genocide like 3 different times?
Yeah,
we were gonna put that statue in my house.
I mean, the question one: does the general public even know Darkseid well enough to know about a statue of him? And if they do, then why do they want it? It's like putting a statue of, I don't know, like Hitler in your house.
Some people in this country would buy that, Pete.
That's true. You know what? Do you know what?
I don't like it.
You're right. There's probably a cult. There's probably a cult of Darkseid worshippers. You're absolutely right. I guess that makes sense. But
but they would not go to a comic shop to buy a statue of Darkseid.
They'd be on the black market from their weirdo who carves them himself by hand.
Yes. Also, I will give Williamson a credit for, I just realized this, on that page with the Darkseid, and it's the combination Batman, Superman, BS from Wade, right? There is an Optimus Prime right there. And I do know that Williamson was doing the Transformers comics, I think. Or is he doing G.I. Joe? Either way, he was doing one of the...
He's involved. He's attached.
Yeah. Throwing them in here and having more draw the back of Optimus Prime. I thought that belongs in the comic shop. Transformers as a concept and a movie, TV show makes sense in the DC universe, right? Darkseid fighting combination Batman Superman does not to me.
No. Again, it's just cheap pops. And it's like, okay, so what things that are going on in current continuity in another book are already like a toy on a store shelf? Yeah, all right. And maybe maybe we're being too serious here, but my problem here isn't the logistics of like them making sense. My problem is that it's all just a bunch of cheap pop meta bullshit, right? And that's why none of it makes sense. Anyway, he goes to Gotham just to visit Crime Alley because he's a nerd, and Damian shows up and says, "Get out of my city," and Clayface shows up, and Damian's fighting Clayface, and Prime helps a little bit. And Prime's like, "Hey, I like Pre-Crisis more, but you're kind of my favorite version of Clayface," and he's like, "Shut up, you never stop talking." Clayface turns into Superman for a minute to try and trick him. Does not work, of course. However, there is a big moment here when he's like in the sky and he's kind of dealing with Clayface where he kind of gets undrawn and ends up having like a flashback to the whole big punch thing and passes out. So it's like something's happening to him. There's like a voice talking to him, trying to convince him that he's still just Superboy Prime and he's a loser. So I'm sure that's going somewhere. But yeah, Damian's kind of nice by waiting around till he wakes up. So kind of made a friend, I guess.
Yeah, and a little bit. They're more friendly. And the other thing there is his boss at the comic book store is just like, hey, you're really good at your stuff, but you're constantly late. And you run off for lunch and you take unauthorized breaks. We can't give you Employee of the Month, which that's not how Employee of the Month works. Williamson, I know you've been out of a regular day job for a minute. Mr. Comic Book Writer, but you know, I'm gonna have to give it to someone else if you're late again. Regardless of if Prime's late or whatever, he's still a good employee, right? Like, I understand him talking to him about that, but making this the crux of he won't have Employee of the Month, I thought was silly.
I mean, I don't think there's rules to Employee of the Month. I think whoever's given it out can judge it on whatever criteria they feel like.
Right, but I just look at that as him being late one more time, I don't think would disqualify him if he's that good at his job. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think it would,
it's
but I think it's too late. I think if he's late one more time, he should just fire his ass.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he still has a job.
Right, and that's the thing, but you're going to give him Employee of the Month, which we're here because he wakes up in Gotham, right, after he's, you know, been undrawn or whatever we're calling that. He gets there and his boss gives him a talking to. I told you not to be late. I'm going to have to give Employee of the Month to somebody else now. Well, it's like, well, no, you tell him to grab your stuff. You're not coming back, you know? So there's just some weird stuff. And I don't know. I don't want my Superboy Prime having real life problems like that, I guess. Actually, I don't want a Superboy Prime now that I think about it.
Yeah, he said that as if you've got an ideal version of what you want Superboy Prime to be.
Yes. No, I just don't want him there.
Yeah, anyway, the kind of moment is he's recounting all this to the Kents, and he's like basically frustrated because he knows he's being spied on by like a Justice League team, and it's like Power Girl and a bunch of others like hovering over the Kent farm, and Martha Kent goes out, calls down Power Girl and says, hey, like, how's he supposed to actually have freedom to show that he's better and be good if he's always being watched? Like, you have to give him a chance. And Power Girl's like, yep, all right, everyone, you heard her, let's leave. And that's kind of that. The ending, though, reveals that that girl that was flirting with him is actually part of a witch coven and is trying to lure him back to sacrifice him for their god or whatever. So it says, next issue, Witchfire versus Superboy Prime.
Yeah, so, and we know that magic is one thing that does affect Prime pretty much, right? Because magic affects the Kryptonians. So I do like that matchup. But yeah, Witchfire is a character that came up that I remember from, was it Tynan's? I'm going to say it's Tynan's Justice League Dark. Like, she was a background character in the Oblivion Bar. I think she had to do with Hecate. I can't recall fully. But once I didn't realize that was her though until it says here, this is Witchfire versus Superboy Prime. I
mean, I think she's in a t-shirt and jeans because they don't want you to get that she's anyone until it reveals it. So it makes sense. I mean, there's a clue. There's a flame on her shirt to kind of give you a clue, but it's not, you know, like her outfit or anything.
Again, redheaded witch lady. I would have folded if I was Superboy Prime. That would have been it. She would have had me. I would have been in that cauldron.
Yeah, Matt, maybe question sometimes, Matt, if a gorgeous woman who's way out of your league is like, hey, let's go somewhere alone together, I get the excitement, but maybe question go, this may be about selling my organs on the black market. This feels like a trap, perhaps.
Look, Pete, I have 2 kidneys. They can have one of them. Sharing is caring. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
he needs friends. That's all.
This was by far the thing I was the least excited to read this week, and was therefore then also equally the thing that I enjoyed the least this week.
Yeah.
So at
least it's good to look at because I do like all of Mora's designs.
Oh yeah,
right? Mora's a great artist. His clay face taking up whole panels, right, and just makes him seem this like larger than life being. I thought was really cool, and then his version of classic Superman when Clayface turns, right? Just Mora doing what he does and drawing that version of Superman, I thought looked really cool.
Yeah, the Clayface pages were probably my favorite looking of the issue. Maybe the only meta thing that Prime said that I remotely enjoyed because it fed into the actual character story was him saying to Damien, hey, like, you were a little shit when you first showed up and everyone hated you, but now everyone loves you. What's your secret to that? Like, that being a little meta, I was kind of fine with because it actually fit into the character arc he's going through. So I had a purpose beyond just, hey, this reference thing, because we like referencing things in meta ways because, I don't know, we get off on it or something. But, yeah.
Well, and And I like that though too, because it adds to some depth with Damian too, where he's like, I just assume that everyone hates me and then I don't care. And I know Williamson's written Damian enough now, and we enjoy his Damian, and we're like, well, I don't know if that's true, Damian. I don't think you think everyone hates you.
Yeah, but he admits that by the time Prime leaves.
Yeah, right. And so that's where I like that it sets that up there. That's what he's projecting to Prime, right? And us knowing from reading Williamson, so when we get to that at the end, it does feel like, oh, okay, Damian does have this, vulnerability towards Superboy Prime by the end.
Yeah. All right, what are you rating Superman?
I'm gonna give this a. Do I lowball it? Do I name it? No. Again, I'll give it a straight 7 because at least the art's good to look at.
I'll give it a 6. It's merely okay at best. All the meta Superboy Prime stuff is grating on me. I hate every scene though, so take that for what you will, and it looks good.